Night security at Sunwillow Park. Incident report, Night 1. I took the job because the pay didn't make sense. That's usually a bad sign. But the listing was simple enough. Night security guard, Sunwillow Park. 10-hour shifts. Watch the cameras, walk the grounds, report trespassers. The park had been closed for years, so the job sounded like the easiest paycheck I'd ever get. When I arrived, the front gates were chained shut. The big archway above them still stood there, faded and rusted. But you could still read the old slogan, Sunwillow Park, where every day shines bright. Some of the bulbs flickered weakly. Most of them were dead. I parked near the maintenance entrance where the current owner had set up the security office. A man named Carl was finishing his shift when I walked in. He didn't greet me like someone handing off an easy job. He looked relieved. "You're the new guy?" "Yeah." Carl grabbed his jacket like he'd been waiting for that moment all night. Before leaving, he slid a binder across the desk. "Just log anything strange." "Strange how?" He paused at the door. "You'll see." Then he left. The office was small and smelled like dust. 6 security monitors filled the wall. Each camera watched a different part of the park. Grand Midway, Storybook Gardens, Adventure Frontier, Neptune Harbor, Carousel Gardens, and the front gate. Everything looked exactly how you'd expect an abandoned theme park to look. Dead. The rides were frozen in place. The walkways were empty. Wind pushed trash across the pavement. Nothing moved. For the first couple hours, the job really was easy. I logged routine checks, did a quick patrol around the Midway. Most of the buildings were locked. The arcade windows were dusty but intact. The giant statue of Jolly Jacks, the carnival rabbit, still stood in the middle fountain, grinning, holding a stack of cartoon prize tickets. The whole place felt like someone had paused a childhood memory and then forgotten to unpause it. Around 12:40 a.m., I heard music. Soft, faint. At first I thought it was coming from my phone, but it wasn't. It was drifting through the park. Slow carnival music. I checked the cameras. Camera 2, Carousel Gardens. The antique carousel in the center of the garden was turning. Slowly. That ride hadn't been connected to power in years. I zoomed the camera in. The carousel horses moved up and down in their slow mechanical rhythm. The old music box melody echoed through the empty garden. The willow trees around the ride swayed in the wind, but there were no lights on the ride. No power cables connected. Just movement. I stared at the screen for a long time before grabbing my flashlight. The walk to Carousel Gardens took about 5 minutes. The deeper I went into the park, the quieter it got. Even the wind seemed to stop. When I reached the garden entrance, the music stopped instantly. The carousel was completely still, exactly like it had been on the camera earlier in the night. The only sound was my footsteps on the gravel path. The ride looked ancient up close, paint chipped, gold trim faded. But the horses still looked happy, frozen in their gallop. I walked around the ride slowly. Nothing. No power, no movement, just silence. Then I noticed something strange. One of the horses had a rider, a small shape sitting on the saddle. My flashlight beam trembled a little as I aimed it upward. It wasn't a child. It was one of the park mascots, Sunny the star bear. The mascot head was sitting perfectly on the carousel horse, facing outward toward the garden. The body of the costume was gone, just the head. Its stitched smile looked almost friendly in the flashlight beam. I stood there for a minute, trying to convince myself someone had left it there as a joke. But something about it didn't feel like a prank. It felt staged, like someone had carefully placed it there to be seen. I walked closer. The carousel horse creaked under my weight as I climbed onto the platform. The sunny head stared straight ahead. Its bright star emblem was stitched between the eyes. The fur looked old, damp. I reached out and touched it. The fabric was warm, not like cloth left outside overnight, warm like something had been wearing it. I stepped back quickly. The carousel creaked. For a second I thought I felt the platform shift, but the ride stayed still. Then something else caught my attention. Footprints. Small ones. In the dust around the carousel base. Barefoot. Dozens of them. They circled the ride, over and over. Like children running in circles. But the park had been locked all night, and there were no footprints leading into the garden. Only the ones already there. I headed back to the office faster than I'd meant to. When I checked the cameras again, everything looked normal. Carousel still, garden empty, Sunny the star bear head still sitting on the horse. But something else was different. Camera 4, Neptune Harbor. The lighthouse at the end of the harbor pier had a light in the window. Just one. A dull yellow glow. The lighthouse had been sealed shut when the park closed. Carl had mentioned that during orientation. The staircase inside had collapsed years ago. No one could get to the top. I leaned closer to the monitor. The light flickered. Then slowly, it moved. Like someone walking inside the tower. At 2:13 a.m., the arcade cameras activated. Not turned on. Activated. The screens inside the Grand Midway flickered to life one by one. Game cabinets lit up in the darkness. Even from the camera, I could see the attract screens flashing. Welcome player, insert coin, try again. And then one screen displayed something different. White letters, black background. Welcome back. I stared at the screen for several seconds. The message changed again. Is the park open? My stomach dropped. Because that arcade wasn't connected to the power grid either. The rest of the night was quiet. Too quiet. Nothing else moved. No music, no lights. Just empty rides and cold wind. But when the sun finally began creeping over the horizon, I checked the cameras one last time. Camera 2, Carousel Gardens. The sunny mascot head was gone. The horse was empty. But something new was there. Drawn in the dust on the carousel platform. Small shapes. Childlike drawings made with fingers. Circles, stars, smiling faces. And one larger symbol in the center. A spiral shape. I checked the ground around the ride again. More footprints. Fresh ones. Leading away from the carousel. Toward the trees. Toward the deeper parts of Sunwillow Park. When Carl came in that morning, I showed him the footage. The moving carousel, the lighthouse light, the arcade message. He didn't look surprised. He just sighed. Then he opened the binder he'd given me earlier. Inside were dozens of reports from other guards, all describing different things, different nights, different parts of the park. Carl pointed to the last blank page. "Write your report." I asked him the question that had been sitting in my head all night. How long has this been happening? Carl didn't answer right away. He just looked out the office window toward the park. The carousel gardens were barely visible in the morning fog. Finally, he spoke. "Since the night the park closed." Then he said something that made the job feel a lot heavier than it had 12 hours earlier. "You'll see worse than this." He grabbed his coffee, and before leaving, he added one more thing. "Stay away from the tunnels." I didn't know what he meant by that. Not yet. But tonight is my second shift, and the cameras are already showing something strange again. The statue of Jolly Jacks in the Grand Midway. It's facing the security office now. I'm almost certain it wasn't earlier. But the thing that really bothers me is this. The security camera timestamp says the statue turned around at 3 a.m., exactly 3 hours after the carousel started moving. And I never saw it happen. End of incident report, night 1.